Welcome back to the DraftAmerica Podcast, Tuesday, September 16th, and we now officially have less than 2 weeks to go in the regular season, and still a lot to be decided in both leagues. Should be a really fun 13 days, and who knows? Remember last year we had to play some extra baseball, make up doubleheader for the Braves and the Mets. So, a couple topics we're going to cover today. We're going to look at the National League seeding for the division winners. You've got two races pretty much in hand. Well, one officially wrapped up last night with the Phillies, Brewers with a pretty comfortable lead over the Cubs, and the Dodgers in good shape, but not fully locking down the NL West. But why the seeding is very important, and we're going to look at the New York Yankees, the evil empire. Where do they rank in the American League, and how much merit does Jazz Chisholm's assertion that the Yankees are the best team in the league really prove to be true? So let's start in the National League. Okay, last night, one heck of a battle that lived up to its billing between the Phillies and the Dodgers in LA. This was the fourth meeting of the year between the teams, and the Phillies now lead that series 3-1, the season series. They pulled out a very exciting back and forth game with the Dodgers 6-5 in 10 innings. By the way, shout out to David Robertson, sits out about half the year, comes back here with the Phillies. There's something about David Robertson pitching at Dodger Stadium. Remember last year with Texas, back-to-back nights strikes out Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman in order. That was one of the most incredible individual performances of the entire year last year. And last night he keeps the ghost runner from scoring and hangs on to that 6-5 lead for the Phillies. So let's sort it out for you if we can here in the National League. You've got Milwaukee at 91-59, 12 games to go. You've got Philadelphia 90-61, 11 games to go. You've got LA 84-66 with 12 games to go. Now, first things first on tiebreaker scenarios. Should any of these teams end up with the same win total, Milwaukee has the season series edge over Philadelphia 4-2. So that 1.5 game lead, which by the way is 2 in the loss column, in essence 2.5, 3. Right, when you break it down that way. So Milwaukee at least has that tie-breaking edge. The Brewers' remaining schedule: home against the Angels, at St. Louis, at San Diego, home against Cincinnati. Philly's got 2 more with LA. They go to Arizona after that, but finish with Miami and Minnesota at home. Actually, Minnesota and Miami. Actually, no, I had it right. Miami and Minnesota at home. And the Dodgers, again, at 84-66, they trail the Phillies now for that number 2 seed by 5.5 games. However, if the Dodgers win the next 2 against the Phillies, they could close that gap to 3.5. And while the season series would be tied between the teams at 3 games apiece, LA would have the tiebreaker because they have basically an insurmountable edge in terms of the next tie-breaking step, which is division record. The Dodgers are 31-14 against the West. Philadelphia is 29-20. So really no way that would change. So if the Dodgers are to catch the Phillies, they almost certainly would get the tiebreaker for, well, I guess it would be the 2 seed. Theory could be the 1 seed. So we gave you the schedules, and I will say this about the Phillies. They have done it with some injuries. You wouldn't think that they would be shorthanded, but no Trey Turner, no Alec Boehm in this series, obviously without Zach Wheeler for the rest of the year. But they feel good about their rotation depth with Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo all leading the way. And all 3 of those guys are going to pitch in this series. Suarez went last night. Sanchez goes tonight. Luzardo goes tomorrow for Philadelphia. We'll see how they play it with, a lot of times teams win the division and the manager kind of lets his big guys have the night off. But I don't know if there's ever been a year in which getting the 1 seed, specifically the 1 seed, is more critical than it is this year for the Brewers. The reason being is that if Milwaukee can lock down the 1, it would guarantee that they would not have to face both the Phillies and the Dodgers to get to the World Series. And I think everybody can say pretty confidently, at least for now, at least from the looks of it, that the Phillies and Dodgers are the 2 best teams in the NL. Those teams would have to face each other in the division round. That is, if the 3 seed gets by the 6 seed, then if that's the Dodgers, they would still have to face the Phillies no matter what. In the division round, Milwaukee would face the winner of what almost certainly is going to be the Cubs and the Padres in the divisional round, and then they would face the well, presumably it'll be Philly, LA. I guess it could be a team like Arizona, San Francisco. I mean, by the way, Arizona, don't count out the Diamondbacks. Remember what they did a couple years ago? All of a sudden, they're only a game and a half out behind the Mets, who have been in a serious funk for that third NL wild card. But for the Brewers, it just seems so critical, especially as they deal with a slew of injuries, especially on their pitching staff. They're still waiting to get back Trevor McGill, Nick Mears. They may be without Jose Quintana the rest of the year. Has a calf injury, was in a walking boot. Maybe they get Logan Henderson back, but I'm not sure. And we've seen Jacob Mizorowski really hit the skids here. And so not completely sure what to make of the Brewers, but they just keep finding a way. But I think, especially with their schedule being, I would say the last week of the season, the Phillies are going to have a pretty soft schedule with the Marlins and the Twins at home to end the year. So Milwaukee really has to take advantage of the fact that the Phillies are playing the Dodgers and Diamondbacks this week. The Brewers have, as we said, they start a 3-game series tonight against the Angels at home, and then they will go on the road to face the Cardinals for 3. They just hosted St. Louis over the weekend, took 2 of 3, including one crazy come-from-behind win in which they trailed by 5 runs. So, to me, the Brewers, I think their path to possibly winning their first National League pennant, they have one pennant in their history, which was in the American League back in '82. Their path to the World Series will be made a lot easier, in my opinion, by getting the 1 seed, forcing Philly and LA to face one another. Not saying the Cubs-Padres winner is going to be a pushover by any means. Especially be interesting if it's Brewers-Cubs, division rivals, know each other well. Brewers have the season series edge, barely, 7-6. We'll see what goes on with the NL wild card. The Mets, they've got themselves into a real pickle by going on this skid. They finally broke that 8-game losing streak on Sunday with a walk-off against Texas. They will host the Padres for 3 this week. Then they get the Nationals for 3. And then their final week of the season, they will go on the road for the final 6 games of the year. They will take on the Chicago Cubs, and then they will finish in Miami against the Marlins, who took 3 out of 4 from them at Citi Field just a couple of weeks ago. So again, no pushover there for the Mets. Schedule, they've got to figure out a way to get this thing turned around. Maybe they can carry some momentum from that win over Texas. They had the 4-game sweep at the hands of the Phillies prior to that, lost 2 to the Reds. I mean, they've just been giving this thing away, and yet they still have a 1.5 game lead, 2 in the loss column on 3 other teams. Arizona is a 1.5 game back because they have 1 more win than both Cincinnati and San Francisco. I mean, it's great. Even St. Louis, for as bad as they've looked all year, really, 73 and 78. Even the Cardinals are 4.5 games back. I mean, pretty darn unlikely that they make it. But just the point being that nobody has really stepped up and taken control of this final wild card spot. But if you look at the Cubs, they are right on the precipice of clinching a playoff berth. Padres also 5 up, actually 6.5 up, on Arizona, just hanging on to a wild card spot. So I think the Brewers have to get that 1 seed. The Phillies have just been on a roll. I mean, they just look, with the additions of Harrison Bader, Johan Duran, although he blew the save last night, and he's had a couple of rough outings at Dodger Stadium this year. Not sure how much we should read into that. But the Dodgers themselves, they're waiting to get back Will Smith. I think their starting pitching is in as good a shape as we've seen it really in years. With all these guys healthy right now and pitching the way they are, Yamamoto has been dominant. Glasnow and Snell have been very good. We'll see what they get from Ohtani. Kershaw, tough start his last time out, but he's really been the stopper for them. Emmett Sheehan pitched really well as the bulk guy yesterday after Bonda was the opener. So their starting pitching is in really good shape, and Mookie Betts, who was just named Player of the Week, he looks like he's back to his old self and then some. So this Dodger team, even if they go in as the 3 seed, that's going to be the one team everyone's looking at as, not sure you want to play them after what they were able to do last October and what they look like they're bringing to the table this year. I would argue certainly a deeper rotation. Bullpen's been shaky at times. Maybe the offense a little more vulnerable, but again, do you really want to take your chances of, if your pitching isn't up to par, they're going to really make you pay. So Milwaukee's got to do everything in its power, I think, to, they've clinched a playoff berth. They're very close to the division. a bye in itself is great, but when you look at it from a seeding perspective, if they fall to the 2 seed, it's very likely that their path to the World Series would involve both the LA Dodgers and Philadelphia Phillies. All right, let's jump to the American League and let's talk about the Yankees. Jazz Chisholm got very confident the other night after the Yankees took the first 2 games from the Red Sox. Chisholm declared that his Yankees were the best team in the league, quote unquote. Chisholm himself has actually been tremendous since he's been a Yankee. He's actually technically been a 40-40 guy over 162 games, if you count last year and this year. If you looked at his overall numbers this year, you'd say, yeah, he's got power, 29 homers, 75 RBIs. Average-wise, not great, 242. But, well, here's Chisholm's exact quote. We're the best team in the league. Any team that thinks they're better than us, they should know that when we step on the field, we're coming with relentlessness. We're coming to step on necks. We're not here to play around. We've said it all year long. We've been playing to everybody else's level instead of our own level. We've been losing games ourselves, making errors, just having poor at-bats and stuff like that. We finally looked ourselves in the mirror and realized that we're the team to beat. That's how we've been stepping on the field for the past 2 weeks. In fairness to Chisholm, the Yankees, despite losing the last 2 games, they are 23-13 over their last 36 games. They were pretty awful in June and July in particular. From June 13th through August 5th, the Yankees were 18-29 over a 47-game span. They did exactly what Chisholm said. They had bad at-bats, they had errors, and they had bad base running decisions. Like, Chisholm getting doubled off on a pop-up in Miami. They made some moves. They've certainly, I would say on paper they've gotten better in the bullpen. Bednar's been really good. Doval, not as much, and Jake Bird was optioned to the minors pretty quickly after they got him. McMahon, he's contributed. He's been maybe solid at best, really kind of underwhelming. I don't know in reality how much better the Yankees have gotten. Their rotation has been really good over the past 3 weeks. Even these last couple games that the Yankees have lost. Warren had the tough inning in the first. Rodon was good last night, and Schlitter had a rough start against the Jays. But in a lot of the losses recently, it hasn't been because of the starting pitching. Fried has steadied himself. Rodon's been really good all year. Luis Hill just spun 6 no-hit innings in his last outing. But I want to dive into Chisholm's quote a little bit more because you talk about, okay, we think we're the best team, we just haven't played well. We think we're the best team, but we've beat ourselves. We think we're the best team, but, we make errors. I got to tell you something. Really good teams do not do that. Really good teams win championships because they don't beat themselves, because they are smarter than their opponent, because they are situationally good, because they're fundamentally more sound. This idea that the Yankees have, quote, played to their competition, let's look at the facts there. They're 4-9 against the Red Sox this year. They're 5-8 against the Blue Jays, so they lose tiebreakers there on both counts. They're 2-4 against the Tigers. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Phillies. Yes, there are a few teams that they have played really well against that are solid ball clubs. They went 5-1 against Seattle this year. Okay, fine. Split 6 with Houston. They swept the Brewers. That was the very first series of the year. The very first series. The Brewers started out 0-4. But I would say that for the most part this year, the Yankees have shown actually that they beat up on bad teams more than they play down to those teams and play really well against the good teams. They're under 500 in one-run games. Again, they started 42-25, and right now they're 83-67. So just by some quick math, they're only 1 game over 500 since June 13th. We've seen this in previous years with the Yankees. They had that insanely good start in 2022 and then played, 500 ball the rest of the year and got outclassed by the Astros in the American League Championship Series. I would say that, look, I understand where Jazz Chisholm's coming from. It is actually, in its own way, love or hate the Yankees, refreshing to see kind of that brashness that we see, in the NFL. A lot of times guys will guarantee victory and they'll kind of puff their chest about how good their team is. And in an odd way, it's kind of refreshing because in today's world of, really careful media speak, players are really careful not to be opinionated or to be boastful. And here's Chisholm saying, to heck with that. I'm the guy who's on the cover of MLB The Show 23. I'm here to try to bring some energy to the Yankees. I can appreciate that to a degree. But, man, you got to be realistic. You're 5 games back of the Yankees. 5 games back of the Blue Jays. You're almost certainly not winning the American League East, which puts you wild card. Right now, you're a game ahead of Boston for a home game. You could very easily fall into a tie, which would give Boston the tiebreaker or below, and have to go on the road. The teams that have beaten the Yankees in the playoffs seem to do so quite often. Houston's beaten them 4 straight times. Detroit's beaten them 3 straight times. I know we're going back some years. Boston's gotten them the last 3 times. I mean, obviously we remember Aaron Boone's home run, and they beat the Sox in 2003, and then, of course, the 3-0 comeback in 2004. Sox beat the Yankees on the way to winning the World Series in 2018. They beat them in the wild card game in 2021. The Yankees, a lot of their postseason success the last decade and a half have been against teams like the Twins and the A's. They haven't stepped up even in the postseason to so-called playing to their level. So my gut feeling is this is not a championship caliber Yankees team. There's a lot of talent there. Is there that aura and that fear factor that teams certainly had when they would play the Yankees in the 90s and even in the 2000s? Maybe a little. Do the Yankees bring a good rotation to the table with Fried and Rodon and Luis Hill and even Cam Schlittler? A lot of people are going to have that slip up. Yes, they do. But is their bullpen really good enough with Luke Weaver giving up 5 runs in a third of an inning? Are the Yankees really that trustworthy when the team they've owned more than any team has owned any team in any sport just beat them 7-0 last night, the Twins? No. I look at the Blue Jays and see a team that's hungry, that's deep, that's been playing great baseball for 2/3 of the season. I look at a Seattle team that, while flawed, is going to have a lot of energy and is playing out of its mind right now with 9 straight wins. I look at a Detroit team that brings a dominant ace to the equation. Now, Tigers, I'm a little more skeptical of. And I look at a Boston team that, for the most part, is beaten up on the Yankees all year. And I don't see a championship caliber team in the Yankees. I see a good team. I see a team capable of winning 1, maybe even 2 rounds. But do I see them being better than teams like the Dodgers, the Phillies, even maybe the Jays and Mariners? How about Houston? We know you talk about fear factor and aura of teams that might have playing the Yankees. I would think that the Yankees have quite a fearful disposition about playing the Astros, maybe even the Tigers or Red Sox. So I disagree with Chisholm wholeheartedly that this is the best team, especially because he admitted in there that they do foolish things to beat themselves. And while they are playing well overall, again, last 36 games, 23-13. You don't have to apologize for that. They have not lost 3 in a row in that stretch. They've lost back-to-back games, though, twice here in the last week against Detroit, and now losing the finale to Boston and losing to Minnesota. But the Yankees have plenty of holes, and teams that beat themselves do not go far in October. We will see. It's going to be a fun 13 days. Again, who knows? Maybe we'll have a rain out or something. We'll have to play, an extra day on that Monday. But now, of course, life's a lot easier with these tiebreakers. I don't know why MLB ever had the whole game 163. I mean, now with the wild card series and everything, they don't need that. They can just settle it by head-to-head. So that's good. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Stay tuned. I want to thank everybody, as always, for tuning in to the Draft America podcast. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon.